Hello everybody. My name is Isaiah Santiago, and I'm ridiculously excited to be here featured on Tossin Magazine for the first episode of, I guess, the first episode that I'm hosting. I don't think that we have a name of the show. Maybe it is a show, maybe it's not a show, whoever knows. But if it is a show, the title that I can think of right now, I would call it Youth in the Gap. So basically, that right there is my show. I don't know, me and Shanique hasn't really gone over this, but that right there is a show, Youth in the Gap. And basically what we'll be doing on here is really focusing on the politics in our city, our community, and also young people, bringing young people up to show their voice. Everybody that knows me knows that I am an advocate for young people having power in their voice. I'm a young person. I'm 17. I like to believe that I'm a little older than 17, but I am 17. And I'm also a young person. So I really push to make sure that we have as many young people being heard in our community as possible. And although today is the first episode, I'm excited for the first episode. I am ridiculously excited for the guest that's on this episode. We have two amazing young ladies, and I love both of them so much. We have the county legislator of the 25th district, Carolyn Hoffman. If we had an audience, I'll say clap your hands, but we don't have an audience. And we also have the county legislator of the 22nd district, Mercedes Simmons. These two people are amazing people that are doing amazing things in our county. And I have connections to both of them because they are both amazing people. So sometimes when we go into county and we go into our government, we all know that we have governments that kind of control and that affects every day of our lives. And sometimes the county, Monroe County, is sometimes a government that is not really understood. And I really figured this out as I've been going around telling people that I'll be interviewing two county legislators today. And a lot of people didn't know what county legislators was. So I thought that, if I'm going to come on here, I also have to explain for the people who may not understand. So the county, Monroe County. So there's about 4 different system of governments that kind of affects our everyday. Anybody that's on this Zoom, if I'm wrong in any kind of way, you guys can correct me. I am 17. So there's 4 governments that kind of controls our everyday. You have your federal, you have your state, you have your county, and you have your city or your town government. And our county government is just like our federal government. You have the legislative branch, you have the executive branch, and you have the judicial branch. So for the legislative branch, we have the 2 legislators on here, which is different districts in our city and in our county. So our county covers the Finger Lakes area. So basically there's different districts in our county that you have different people stand up and say, I'm going to represent for the legislation that may happen in our county. And then you have your executive for Monroe County, which is Adam Bello. And then you also have your judicial branch, which is our county judges. So now to the amazing people I have on here. You guys see how beautiful they are. We have Carolyn Hoffman and Mercedes Simmons. Before we really get into it, one thing that I've learned, because I've done this before, surprisingly or not, one thing I've learned is to elevate, to start off at one point and then at the end in a bigger point than we started off with. So I want to start off by asking you guys about your backstory. So before you guys became these amazing legislators for the 22nd and the 25th district, what were you doing? What were you advocating for? What were you working for? I want to start off with Carolyn.
Sure. So, when I was in college, the movement for Black Lives, as well as the Fight for 15, sort of started taking off. There was a lot of movement around economic justice and criminal justice reform. Not too long after, Bernie Sanders launched a presidential campaign saying that everyone deserves healthcare. And, these movements really stirred something in my heart from my youth and from sort of the organizing days of my youth and sort of growing up in church. So I came home to Rochester and threw myself back into organizing. Grew up in a union family, so organizing and sort of working power was something that was really deep in my bones. Got involved with the Police Accountability Board, got involved with the Mary Lou Bean for City Council campaign, Robin Wilt for Congress, sort of did all of these things. And then, all of a sudden there was a seat, like personally, for a representative for my neighborhood. I didn't see someone running that reflected, the things that I'm concerned about. like criminal justice reform or like radical economic policy. There's so many things, right? When people ask about your background, it's like, well, do you want to know about like when I was 5 or 15 or 5 minutes ago? But I'll pass it to Mercedes and kind of see where that lands for you. Yeah.
Thank you, Carolyn. And thank you for this is amazing that you've put this together to have this platform. And also you're making a connection with a younger generation and getting them engaged in politics. So thank you for doing that.
I do want to say this. Big shout out to Tossin. Tossin is the one who got me pushing and got me into this. Tossin magazine. If you guys don't know about it, check it out. Search it up on Facebook, on Google. It'll even show up on. You guys make sure that you guys check out Tossin magazine because they're the ones who pushed me to start this. But back to you.
Let's Be Lead Safe with May Development is a certified firm dedicated to reviewing lead hazards in your home to avoid the health risks associated with lead poisoning. To ensure you have a safe environment for you and your children, have your home tested by a licensed and professional lead testing company to determine if you have any hazards. Contact us today at 585-503-3559 or visit us at letsbeleadsafe.net.
That's fantastic. So thank you for it, and everyone else that's tied into this. So how did I get started with all this? My mother's a civil rights activist. She was part of the civil rights movement of the 60s. And ensuring that voter rights were secured. Latinos, when they came into Rochester, and many ethnic groups, right, had to take a literacy test in order to even register to vote. Now you think about all these steps, and yet, we think about them, we almost take it for granted that we have the ability to register to vote. You just walk in and register to vote, and once you're age, you're able to do that. But many of the folks that came into this country didn't have it as easy and didn't have that right to vote. And my mother was instrumental in having that restriction removed. Social justice has always been part of, my upbringing. My mother's been in every single march, known to man. So when you have a person like that in your life, you have to follow suit, right? And so we continue to fight. Voter rights should always be upheld. Making sure that democracy is upheld should be our absolute responsibility. But what do I do? What's my 9 to 5? I'm a fight promoter, boxing and MMA. I've owned my own company for a little over 10 years, but I've been in the boxing industry for about 25, almost 30 years. Oh, yeah. So that's what this is what I do. I'm a fight promoter. But I'm using that energy that I put into the boxing industry, into the MMA industry, and understanding the dynamics that goes to even pushing something like that, a show. Let's use topics that are important to our community and figure out a connection with our community. And one of the biggest, people say, what's your key to success? I didn't have a political background. I've volunteered in some, but I really didn't have that political background. It's really it was grassroots. It was getting back to the people and focusing on the people. Going door to door was a priority to me. And I told everyone was like, what advice do you have to anyone that's running? Get back to the people, have conversations with the people in the community, and they'll be your drivers. So again, thank you for having this platform, and that's my story. Thanks again for having. I look forward to this dialogue today.
I have to give a big shout out to Mercedes because Mercedes invited me to my first live boxing match, and I have to say it was awesome. And also, if you see the medal right there, Mercedes, you see how much I care about that medal. The medal right there was given to me by the WBC and Mercedes. So I really do appreciate that award. And big shout out to you for.
Let me tell you, the WBC is one of the most prestigious belts that one can have. Muhammad Ali, Mayweather. If you think about all the greatest of greats, they've all had that WBC belt. That WBC represents excellence. That represents community, and that's everything that you embody. So it was an honor for me to present it to you.
I have to tell you, I was on the college interview the other day, and they said something about the awards, and I was like, that right there is a WBC award, which is usually given to boxers. I have never boxed a day in my life, but this award was given to me because of my work in the community and what I do. But I want to get into, when you guys made the decision, I am going to stand up and fight for my community, for my district, and for the constituents. Look, I said that word right. Stop playing with me. The constituents of my district. I want to fight for these people. So when you started your campaign and when you made that decision, what was the process of that? And this time we'll start with Carolyn, because Mercedes was just speaking.
Yeah, can you clarify the question, just the early?
So as far as like when you made that decision, like I'm gonna run for the 25th district or the 22nd district, and this is why I'm like, what was the feeling when you made that decision, and how was it when between the time when you decided to run to the time that you finally won the election? How was that process?
Yeah, so I actually approached this with a lot of sort of caution and humility. I wanted to make sure that I was in submission to the folks that I'm accountable to, you know, in the movement, and also, you know, not sort of stepping out of turn, sort of without their blessing. And I have folks that I really look up to in the work and sort of submit my work to. And so, you know, there was a lot of conversations just with that. Is this something that the community wants me to do? Is there someone else who's already got this, right? Like trying not to have two activists running, you know, and splitting resources and all of that. You know, the actual moment I think that's interesting is the cliff jumping, which is actually going ahead and pressing the button and saying, yeah, I'm going to run. And in my case, I announced on my Facebook page, you know, before even doing a press release or anything like that. And, you know, I remember that morning, I spent a lot of time on the phone with my friends, a couple different really close friends, just like, are you sure I can do this? Am I sure I can do this? Are we sure? Like, and just even reworking that statement and really realizing that like that moment, there's no point of return, right? Like if you announce I'm running for office, you're running for office, right? Like it's too late after that, you know? And, you know, there's a lot of things about, you know, Rochester politics, you know, in general. And I think it's a power thing, you know, and sort of a trauma in the general, even in our world, right? That politics can be a really toxic environment. And that when we're living with scarcity, people can get really weird about power. And so, you know, it was a decision I made with a lot of reverence. And I remember, you know, like I said, that morning, like it took me hours to press post, you know, and to really like go through it. And it felt like jumping off of a cliff. And so there's so much I can say about, yeah, those early days and the decision to run. You know, as a social movement strategist, of course I felt like this was something that I could do. You know, I wouldn't have done it if I didn't. And so it wasn't like, I wasn't like, you know, you can always lose, right? But I wasn't surprised, like we won and we thought that we could win, or why would we have been doing it? But there were people along the way who were completely adamant, just completely positive that I could never, that there was just absolutely no chance. And I just always felt like that's strange, because I live here and, you know, I'm known for being good at, you know, a good organizer, you know, and an inspiring leader. And so you think that people would maybe just think, well, maybe she knows something I don't know, you know, because I feel like we look at women, and particularly young women, and we're just like, it's very easy for bias to just say, like, to just erase that person. Like they obviously don't know what they're doing. She's obviously just kind of a dumb, cute girl who thinks that she can run for office. How cute. Like, no, like I'm a professional and I live here, and you know, I'm surrounded by people who, you know, have surrendered their lives into making the world a better place. And this is one of the ways that they do it. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it was like jumping off a cliff to make that announcement. Mercedes, what about for you?
So before Mercedes goes,
you know,
I do have to, no, it's good. I do have to say, Carolyn Hoffman, when I saw the announcement, because me and Carolyn has known each other since 2016, was it? I don't know when it was. It might have been 2019. These last few years have been a lot. But me and Carolyn met a long time ago, and she made that post. And as I was reading, I saw something that said she stands for, and I was like, all right, I might be able to support this woman. And I then, text her, and I was like, I'd love to be a part of making you get into office, and getting you into office. And we ended up having a meeting. I believe it was like an hour long. I made sure.
No. So let's just say it correctly. Isaiah was my toughest interview of the campaign. Yeah, which actually was impressive for me because a lot of adults, no offense to the 17-year-old, but a lot of adults quickly throw themselves into political campaigns or otherwise, and it's a miss and like kind of get burned, right? So it's so important. You did the right thing to really make sure that not just our values aligned and that what I was saying aligned, but that our commitment was in alignment, right? Like it's one thing to know what's right, but are you going to be willing to make a sacrifice? So anyways, Isaiah gave me the hardest interview of the campaign, and I passed, and you came on as our chair, our youth chair for the campaign, and ended up doing so much. Yeah.
And Carolyn, after the meeting, because I knew I was asking hard questions, but I knew if this is the person I'm supposed to push and support, she will be able to hold up to the standard that I'm asking for. Definitely, if I'm going to come on to support you. And I have to say that it was one of the best moments of my, I'll say, community work life. Being able to work with Carolyn and really see the in and outs of how a campaign runs. And the thing about it is, is no secret to anybody. At some point, there's no question on if I'm going to run for a political office. There's no question about that. So being able to be with Carolyn and see the in and outs of how a campaign works was ridiculously awesome. And my favorite thing is to go around and talk to people. So sometimes being able to canvas out there and talk to people and talk about issues that we agree on and even issues that we don't agree on, which is all right, was absolutely awesome. So now we're going to move on to Mercedes. Mercedes is the representative of the district of the 22. I didn't word that right, but you know what I'm saying. Of the 22.
Right, the 22nd district.
The 22nd district. I have to give her a big shout out because I grew up in the 22nd district on North Clinton.
We have so much in common. We're both soda alum. This is great. I know when I heard you were like a soda student, I'm like, we were family forever. Just know that. Wish you would worked on my campaign. We had the same energy. In fact, I love the fact that it's Carolyn and I on this, because she would always tell me, I feel like I'm running against you. We're in two different districts.
Listen, if anybody was motivating me and making me feel like I need to get up and hit the doors, it wasn't my opponents, it was Mercedes. Like literally every time I turned around, Mercedes wins 7 campaigns before breakfast, right? Like it just, I would wake up and be like, Mercedes, I'd be like having coffee, Mercedes already been to 100 doors, and I just was like, oh my God, I gotta hit these doors, right? Like it just was like, it was an inspiring, it helped. I needed the push of having somebody hustling next to me, right? It's almost like somebody next to you on the treadmill, like,
this was great. Yeah, I'll have to say that, I enjoyed the energy that she and I both brought to this election. I took it very seriously. And as I mentioned, I don't have a political background, but 2020 was a defining year for me. It was primary 2020, where my mother, who's a civil rights activist, here it is, 50 plus years, I shouldn't say 50 years, here it is. She was dealing with some stuff in the mid 60s. And here it is 2020, and her right to vote was violated. So this poll, there's always a moment, right? There's always a defining moment. That was my moment to say, we have to do something different. And if we don't step up, then who will? And my mother's always the one that says, don't complain about it, do something about it. My mother's a tough cookie. I told everyone she should have been like a drill sergeant. And she's very structured in what she does. Her commitment to the community from day one has always been there. And again, I am her daughter. Everyone says you are so much like your mother. I think I'm my mother on steroids. But my mother is still a force. She was a force, and certainly my guidance when it came to running for office. And it wasn't easy. I'll have more no's than yes, but the work had to get done. I entered into neighborhoods that everyone said, this is legacy stuff. You may not want to go in those areas. And I made sure those were the first areas that I went to. As Carolyn mentioned, I mean, I put in tons of hours during the daytime, every day. And those days that, I mean, we went through some blistering weather, really cold weather, just to get the signatures. Do you remember that, Carolyn? It was snowing. It felt like it snowed every day. But we had to get out there, and the first step, right after you make that announcement, once you make that announcement, there's no turning back. You have to secure signatures, and you have to go out there and really sell yourself. Now, it was very easy for me to get out there and campaign. There was no need for me to mention who I was running against, but I would ask the voter, do you know who your county legislator is? That was all I had to ask. I had everything from Malik Evans to, they had no clue. So I said, this is going to be very easy for me to win this race. And all I focused was on the work that I've done in the community, right? Because there's history with the community, born and raised in this community, and what I wanted to give back to my community. And it was a story of, how do I connect with all the voters? We all have the same concern. I'll tell you, I have probably one of the most diverse district. I have the poorest of the poorest and the wealthiest, right? The most affluent in the city of Rochester, all in one. I found some of the common, so what could possibly be common? You know, what could someone from East Avenue have with someone on Harris? Number one thing that they talked about was public safety. Everyone wants their children to play outside and not have to worry about gunshots. People worried about the very fundamental things. They want best for their children. They want to be able to raise their children, affordable housing. It was a consistent message all throughout. Listen, I was born and raised in this community. I'm a product of our RCSD. I was a single mom. There are many things that I was able to relate to my constituents. And till this day, we continue. People tell me all the time, you could stop campaigning, but this is who I am. I've always been, you know, dedicated to the community. It's just now we're more on social media more often. Like I'm on social media every day because you don't stop working. And if the voters forget who you are come election, they know. Voters know when you're only coming around when it's election time. I don't want to be that candidate. I'm the candidate that made promises, but I'm also the candidate that's fulfilling on our commitments. So that's me. Sorry, I'll go on those tangents.
So no, that's what this is for. But that's ridiculously important. And our politicians is people who are there 24/7. Not people who get elected and then they disappear, you never see them again, but people who gets elected and you see them more times than you don't. Definitely when you're out and you go to the events. You see them at more events than you don't see them at. And that right there is a really big important thing about Carolyn and Mercedes is how they are, one, transparent. They're honest people. You just heard Mercedes tell you guys, you know, the stuff that she went through in life, right? So transparent people and people that you can trust that will be there are the most important people as politicians. And that's why I love these two ladies. I ridiculously love both of them. So there's an issue, right? Sometimes when you're doing your work, there's always something that's pushing you, right? It's an issue. So like with me, I do my community work. What really pushes me is youth gun violence. You know, when no matter what, even when I feel like I want to give up in the work that I'm doing, I think about the change that
Did we lose him? Uh-oh.
I think he was going to ask about like what drives you. Well, I'll give him.
Did we lose him? I don't know.
So you guys should be able to hear me now, right?
Yep.
Okay. So this is why we do two devices. All right. So what's something that pushes you, you know, to continue moving? So like I was saying with gun violence, youth gun violence. That's what keeps me going. You know, even when I feel like giving up, that's what keeps me pushing and keep me going. So what's like that main issue? And you guys kind of touched on it already, but what's that main issue that keeps you pushing even when you feel like giving up? And whoever wants to go first can go first.
You want to go first, Mercedes?
Sure, I'll go first. When you live in a neighborhood, you see the needs that are in a community. To me, poverty, we have to address the core, right, which is poverty. I was given an opportunity. I was born and raised in the Northeast quadrant off North Clinton Avenue. I experienced the first shooting when I was 4. And that resonated. That was such an impact in my life to say, I don't want this for the rest of the community. I walked through the neighborhoods. I mean, during this whole campaign, the living conditions that some of these individuals are in are, to me, just unacceptable. So it's just seeing the needs on a day-to-day basis. We recently started a organization, which I was just recently named executive director, and it's the Latino Youth Development and Resource Center. Growing up, I was a member of Puerto Rican Youth Development. Somewhere that I frequent, and it was a safe haven for young people within our community. And although it was called the Puerto Rican Youth Development, we had the entire neighborhood there. I want to say about maybe 20 years ago, they did away with that. And to me, not having that level of commitment to the youth, to the young people, I think we missed something. So we recreated the organization or brought concepts of what that was. And it's called the Latino Youth Development. And essentially it's that, a safe haven so that young people can meet and have conversations. And then we could also have areas where we can assist young people so that the streets isn't the only alternative we have, right? We have to give them alternatives. You know, I'm happy to say we have close to 30 young people going through the program, and it's a fairly new organization. We have 30 young people going through the program. We're connected to different services and programs so that we're getting them employed, we're getting them training, we're getting them exposed to things that they would have never had access to. So certainly, again, when you're in a community, you see what the needs are. To me, poverty, you have to address poverty. To me, poverty is the root of all the problems that we're having. Carolyn, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you immediately went to suffering being a motivator, and there can be nothing but a sense of urgency when people, including myself, are suffering from things that are preventable and that they don't have to be suffering from. You know, I grew up in a union household, which meant like we had healthcare and just some sort of like basic needs met. And so, you know, growing up in the generation, you know, graduating right around 2008 and hitting a health crisis in my early 20s, I went from, you know, like a working class family life. We weren't a vacation family, but there was food on the table. I could go to the doctor if I wanted to, right? Like just this standard of living where at least our basic needs were met, into falling below the poverty line, and becoming, you know, a part of that like constant struggle and scramble to get out from under that. And so I think like having grown up with the benefits of organized labor and then basically living my adult life in poverty has made me absolutely furious. And I think there's something unique about that experience in that I'm like, wait, no. There's nothing special about not living in poverty. There's nothing special about wealthy folks. I also was exposed to, you know, wealth. Like I had glimpses into like a wealthy world. So having lived there and lived here, I know what it does to people. And so when I see the effects of poverty on my neighbors as well and folks around me, I'm just like, there's absolutely no reason that people don't have healthcare. I have absolutely no shame about this because I know exactly what's going on here. And so I think I'm uniquely positioned to carry the rage and the indignation of poor and working class folks, because I know what it's like to have healthcare and not worry about it. And I know what it's like to like be able to afford groceries and not worry about it. And so no one can tell me nothing about the situation that we're in, and about the situation that like so many Rochesterians are in, right? Like we're dealing with some of the worst of this. And so when I see someone got shot on my corner yesterday, when I see the violence, the mental health crisis, I see poverty. And again, like having, come from an organized labor household, and then, being an adult and struggling, I know just how poverty can contribute to health crisis and to violence and to desperation. And I have a lot of friends who couldn't even help with my campaign because they're working 2 jobs, and basically their entire life just goes into like dealing with the stress level of barely being able to pay the rent every month. And these are people who are better off than a lot of the folks that I'm surrounded by. And the other thing that keeps me going is I want my neighbors to be proud of me. To be honest, like I love them so much. They love me so much. I made a post the other day about shoveling, and one of the other reasons I have to shovel is because my neighbor will shovel for me if I don't, and I just couldn't live with it with this much snow. And so like I want them to be proud of me. I want to do right by them and make them right for sticking up for me and supporting me. And for folks like you, Isaiah, who said like, I believe in her. Like, I just want to do a good job on behalf of everybody who, took a risk in sort of supporting me.
Wow. You hear how awesome both of these people and young women are. They are absolutely awesome candidates and awesome politicians. I'm glad that you guys are already in our seats in our county legislature. So now we move on to current issues in our city and also in our county. So the first thing I want to ask, right? And if you guys want to pass by this, we could definitely pass by this. But there was no way that I cannot, give the opportunity for you guys to say something, because we've been hearing a lot from, others, but not from, the actual people that's in there. So we know that our new president of the county legislators is President Sabrina Lamar. Big shout out to her as being our first Black president in our county legislature. And of course, we've been hearing a lot about it. And you two are people that's there. And of course, we want to hear, you guys' side of the story, you guys' side of this whole big thing that's been going around media and around our county. Whoever wants to start can say.
Are you tired of mainstream media's distortion of the truth, cover-ups, and bias? We've allowed outsiders to tell the stories of the community for far too long. Now the Community Reporters puts the news back in the hands of the people. Our goal is to work directly with residents to tell a clear and honest story that mainstream media typically tries to hide. No more hidden agendas or business as usual. Join the Community Reporters today.
I don't mind starting. So, one of the things that my constituents elected me to do is to have good working relationships with other people who are in positions of power in this city in order to access resources for my constituents. And, my voters are very educated, smart people. A lot of them know what politics is like. And they would ask me, okay, you're an activist. Are you going to be able to get along with your coworkers? Because what people don't realize about this entire situation is I was just put into another system where I have more power, but I'm in a structure where I don't have the power, right? Like I'm still dealing with a system that will nickel and dime the people for every last dollar, right? And so it's like, I mean, that's maybe not the best analogy, but I'm in a system that is still a white supremacist system, that is still a capitalist system. And I have to negotiate with that system to get resources and criminal justice reform to my community. And so I am excited to have our first Black woman president of the legislature. I believe she wants to do a good job. Of course, I really, I poured my heart into trying to bridge relationships. I would have liked to have seen you know, the chair of human services be somebody who is progressive. I would have liked to see the chair of public safety be an activist. And I believe that President Lamar wants to do a good job. I believe that she cares about the community. I wish that it were different, but the entire point is that it go well. So her success is our success. If we secure what we need for the people, I really don't care who the president of the legislature. I respect the president of the legislature, but we just need to get the work done, you know. And Sabrina is my colleague, and my constituents elected me to have a good working relationship with her so that we can move past the fights of our forefathers and the political drama that has held this community captive for so long and actually get some things done.
And I totally stand by that. I believe I stand strong, and sometimes we forget that it's okay to not agree with everything about somebody. And sometimes we forget that even if they have a different way of thinking, they are still trying to benefit our community. And sometimes we lose that, not only in politics, but even in everyday life. Because we disagree, we cannot, work with each other. We cannot be cool with each other. And I'm not going to say any names, but I almost started talking about Donald Trump. I don't even want to go there. But like when you look at it, there shouldn't be that disconnection just because we disagreed on one issue. We should still be able to work because although we disagreed, we still have the same intentions at mind of helping our community and making our community better. Mercedes, do you have anything to say?
I agree with Carolyn. At the end of the day, we were elected to get a job done. Is it the ideal scenario? It's not. But I celebrate her successes. As a woman of color, I'm ecstatic. I'm happy that she's in the position that she's in. Again, not the ideal scenario with, being elected as a Democrat and caucusing with the Republicans. But at the end of the day, there's work to be done. And I'm confident that, what we were chartered to do, we will complete. I tell everyone I've got the perfect job. I get to represent the people that raised me. And I take that with pride, and I take everything very personal. Whenever we have conversations, let it be legislation or referrals, my first thing, how does it benefit my constituents? District 22. My district has been deprived. I mean, we have, again, segments within my district that has never received assistance. When I think about Scioto, Lewis Street, where there's shootings every single day, multiple shootings every day, how do I improve their lives? They have over 100 plus vacant lots in a quarter mile. How do we improve that? So my focus, I'm laser focused on what my commitments are to my community. And we have to, as Carolyn said, we have to work with our partners in government to make sure that we follow through on our commitments. So.
All right, I think that right there was awesome. Good responses. So I also saw that there's district lining. I believe that there's changing in district lining. I'm not sure exactly, what's going on, but I know that you two may know exactly what's going on. So again, I don't know. I have no knowledge in it, so I wanted to give you guys an opportunity on your thoughts on it, and also to kind of explain to the people who may not know what is going on with district lining.
I can take a stab at redistricting. I've had several conversations about redistricting and really trying to engage the community in this conversation. Last year, the Republicans' agenda was to sort of push this through the system. And what it does is it takes our districts as we know it and almost breaks it up. Depending on who you speak to, I know some of the conversations that I've had with my constituents in District 22, it gives the advantage to the Republican Party because it'll take your district and almost break it up. It breaks up, it changes lines. Now they're saying, well, what's the data based off? Is it based off a census? And even the census is skewed too. There's so much that went down to with that census. Redistricting is such an important conversation. And again, I'm trying to engage in as many individuals as possible. I believe the last meeting that we had, correct me if I'm wrong, it was vetoed by Bello, our county executive. So now we're having to go back to committees and have that redistricting revisited. But it's important that we understand the importance of it and how it impacts communities. Carolyn, did you want to?
Sure. Okay. So every 10 years, there's a census. And based on that census, that's how district lines are drawn, whether it's for Senate or our level, county ledge, that type of thing. It's a really interesting position to be sort of starting a term as an elected official in a redistricting year, right? Because I just went to a few thousand people, shook their hand, said, I care about you, I'm coming back. And I promise to work on these things. And now we're changing the lines. And so the people that I represent might actually end up being different than the people that I campaign with. And obviously I will still carry the water of these issues, no matter who I'm representing. Who I am is who I am. But, it's just really strange to have it change so quickly. So the other thing to think about redistricting is this is a state thing too. So our Senate and Assembly lines are being redrawn, our congressional lines are being redrawn. And so if you notice, there's politics is a little bit quiet for mid-January because, you hear these rumors about who's running against who and who wants to run for this Assembly seat or that Senate seat or whatever, but nobody actually knows what district they're going to be in. And so nobody's actually been able to announce their campaigns, which actually provides an advantage to incumbents because, the incumbent already has an advantage. Now, if people aren't able to announce campaigns because they don't actually know whose district they're going to be in, then the longer that takes, the more advantage to the incumbent. And eventually, if the folks who are charged with getting this done don't get it done, a judge will step in and say, you have to do this, right? This is a legal part of being in the United States of America. We have to have district lines. We have to have representatives, and people have to be able to vote for those representatives. So eventually the judicial system will step in and pull rank. And so at the county level, there were maps that were submitted last year. There was a long, contentious process. I don't think anybody needs to be dragged through that by me talking about it again. But ultimately, Adam Bello did veto the maps that were submitted last year. And one of the things that changed, from December to January, is there's less of a likelihood that if Adam vetoes something as a county executive, that veto can be overridden by a super majority. They just the dynamics have changed. And so there's now a little bit more tension sort of between the Republicans and the Democrats in the legislature. It's a little bit more even, to the point where folks either need to kind of figure it out and come to something that they can sort of, all agree on, or it's going to get lobbied to the courts, like it might in our state races. I hope, there's more details than that. I also just want to be, sensitive to the process, and, I'm checking my words. I'm this is public information, right? Making sure I'm talking about things that are, it's just a weird situation to be in. And we actually have to run faster again, right? We actually have to run again right away because the lines are changing. And so you have to run in your new district. I mean, one of the things that we can probably count on is, for the most part, folks are probably going to still be in their same districts, right? So Mercedes is probably going to still be in LD22, right? You'd have to have pretty bad maps. Generally, redistricting isn't supposed to be used as a political sort of weapon against someone. And so generally folks are going to keep people in their same districts, because otherwise it can be seen as sort of a political maneuver. And so this is supposed to be for the people. This is supposed to be districts that serve the people and make sense based on neighborhoods, based on really neighborhood. Ours is a neighborhood level, because we want, folks in plaques to be able to organize with folks in plaques. or folks in Cornhill want to, or you know what I mean? So you can see how dividing lines can actually divide power and can actually be used to sort of disorient marginalized communities. So there's a lot of like micro politics and sort of considerations that go into redistricting. And I'm glad it's not my job to draw maps, to be honest. Like it's just definitely glad that somebody out there is going to hopefully go through these with a fine-tooth comb and make them as, you know, oriented to the people as possible.
So we are coming close to the end. We're coming close to the end.
That was quick.
Thank you two for coming on. But I have two more things on this list. I did make a list. I'm proud of myself for being prepared. I'm usually not prepared. I usually come last minute, but I made a list this time because you two are so special. For the first one, I want to ask you guys, so let's say if there's a young person who's looking at this live or this Zoom, and not only a young person, maybe even an older person around you guys' age, that wants to at some point run for an office. What are you guys' tips and advice going into this? We'll start off with Mercedes.
Well, do it. First and foremost, do it. But have conversations with your family and friends because it's a commitment. You're going to have a commitment from your family. There's going to be some sacrifices up front. I would say that'd be the first step. Make sure you have the commitment of your family to and then create a platform that you feel good about. Your platform will provide you with a guide. And be mindful of the community. Why are you running? Ask yourself the question, why am I running? I encourage, I love the fact that you're having this conversation and that many in your audience, right, are of your age, because you're able to vote now. Once you're right, 18 years old, you're able to, the impact that you have. And my mother always said this to me, and I never understood it. She said, do you realize the value of every voter? We're all billionaires at the poll. Never quite understood that. And what that means is the weight of your vote is just as powerful as Bill Gates. Is everyone's, how special that is and how powerful that is. And I think we tend to forget the value of a vote, right? And there's meme that goes out that's out there that says if your vote wasn't that valuable, they wouldn't try to hold that vote from you. And I think that's an important message. But again, making sure that you have the support of your family is going to be key. There's sacrifices that need to be made up front, but do it. Have the courage to do it and ask questions. There's resources that are out there. Board of elections is great, but also talk to, existing politicians and folks. Like my part of my strategy was I spoke to a lot of the folks that I grew up admiring. Some of the politicians that were in office then, they've since retired, but I've reached out to them and said, why did you run? What made you want to run? And what made you successful? This isn't rocket science, but don't reinvent the wheel. Have conversations with folks that have already been in politics and find out what made them successful. I guess that would be the tip. I know that was a long tip, but
No.
Just do it.
I am so excited because I am turning 18 this year, which means I am going to be able to vote. I am so excited about that. I'm actually.
And let me tell you, this is I tell everyone every year there's an election year. Every year it's important. Some of the local level impacts us the most. Next year we're going to have, this year, right? We have, we have assembly, we have senate, but we have judges. And I think that people minimize the judges. There's some great candidates that are out there. I'm not putting a plug to anyone, but I'm excited about Candace Patterson running. There's a lot of great candidates that are coming up. Do the research, and I'm hopeful that these folks have already, that you're seeing folks make an announcement on who's running for what. But this is the time to start going to see their presentations and find out. Ask them the questions that you want to ask. Where do you stand with social justice? Where do you stand with gun violence? And start, at the end of the day, they work for you. Make sure that you're getting the best candidate for the job.
Again, I'm so excited about voting. I'm actually pre-registered. So I actually pre-registered when I was 16. So I'm pre-registered.
That's awesome.
To vote. I am there to vote. And for anybody who's not registered to vote, please do that now. Like whenever you have a chance, I believe you can go onto the Board of Election on the Monroe County website, and you can register right off of there. Please, because like Mercedes said, your vote is so important. It's ridiculously important. So let's move over to Carolyn.
Advice for young people who want to run for office?
Anybody who may want to run, what is your advice and what are your tips?
Okay, so you have to actually vote. Voting is actually public record. So if you go to run for office and I go and open your file and you haven't ever voted, I'm going to tell people that. No, just kidding. But that's something that people can see, right? And so you want to actually vote because people will actually go and check to see if you ever cared before you decided to run for office. And it's weird if you run for office. I mean, okay, everybody can change, but right, like, so that's something that people look at. I get it. Like, you know, there was a moment as a young person when I was like, all of this seems so corrupt, and power felt like not having any power, not having any part of it, until, you know, Bernie Sanders came along and I realized that I just didn't have any hope. And I voted ever since. And I sort of, you know, that really was transformational for me. Bernie and I have the same birthday, by the way. Virgos, me and Bernie. So I would say vote, you have to vote. And I would say start to build a relationship with your local Democratic committee. Most people don't even know what that is until they get involved. It's a really important part of the process. Running for office is like Legends of the Hidden Temple. Mercedes is saying, like, talk to people who've done it. No, like, you have to do it. I mean, I can't recommend running for office if you haven't actually, you know, run next to someone who was running, because this is unlike any other thing. It is an obstacle course. And if you don't know at all what you're signing up for, people are going to run right past you before you even know what a petition is. It's just, it shouldn't be that hard, but it is that hard. And that's part of sort of keeping people in power, right? Is if it's not an accessible process, you know, then it sort of reinforces itself. So I would say, like, get involved in a campaign and do every part of that campaign. And then almost from more of a coaching perspective, because I have like a therapeutic coaching practice, I would say, like, distill down what it is that you really want to do, right? So for example, I think I'm a stand-up comedian and all of a sudden I stop enjoying that. Well, maybe what I really actually enjoyed about stand-up comedy was the people who were doing it, and that changed. So really think about, like, if you want to run for office, what is it about running for office that is actually attractive to you? Because it might actually not be running for office that you want to do, right? And so if you want to be on stage a lot, you might actually maybe want to, like, maybe try singing, because there's a lot of stage with singing, but not a lot of maybe interpersonal drama that comes with politics. So, like, I would really get, you know, really reflective about, why do you want to do this? Is because you want to make a change? If you want to make a change, is this the way to do it? Can you stomach the other parts of it? Are there other ways of making a change that are a better fit? Like, it just, like, really think about, what is it about this that is attractive to you, you know, from a coaching perspective, to make sure that, you know, you're not accidentally doing something that really doesn't bring you life or that burns you out, you know. And there might be making a difference, you know, in a different way that is a better suit to your own heart, you know. And so just finding that, like, I spend a lot of time doing, you know, and not actually this, but stand-up comedy, because there were things about what I was doing that fit for me and that fit for my heart and my soul. But maybe not enough. And so, like, I don't know, I like kind of switched into coaching mode, but you have to go through it. And you have to really figure out what about this is attractive to you, to find out if it's going to be emotionally sustainable. Because 150 days into the campaign, when you just found out that your best friend's secretly not supporting you behind your back, you have 700 palm cards to pay for, and by the way, you have to hit your doors, like, you know, hopefully this isn't just something that you were curious about. This is something that you really thought through. So you have to vote and volunteer on someone else's campaign, I think, are the two biggest. Oh, and the Democratic Committee. If you don't know what that is, you need to figure it out, and you need to start building a relationship with those folks. It's still a powerful thing. Locally, it makes people mad. Some people would say, don't worry about doing that. Listen, endorsements are endorsements, and the Democratic endorsement in Rochester is a big endorsement. Yes, you can win any campaign without endorsements. And I actually didn't have the party endorsement for the primary and I won. But literally, you don't, why swim upstream if you don't have to, you know? So, you know, start to figure out endorsement processes and how those work. What are the organizations in your community that are politically active? I could go on and on and on. I actually teach, you know, social movement and how to do this. So this is you're getting yourself into a hole here with me asking me, because I can teach the whole class. I'm going to stop there.
Wow. Definitely good encouragement and tips. So this is the last thing. We all know that between all the news that we see and all the stuff about COVID and gun violence in our community, it could really mess us up, you know, emotionally and mentally and all that stuff. So you two, as county legislators representing different spots in our county, can you just give an encouraging note to your county and also to whoever you represent in your district? Just something encouraging.
Well, something that I tell my community, because I'm out there every single day, is that they're not alone. I'm right there with them. I have the same concerns as they do, and that their voices are heard. And I think that that's one of the most important messages I want to get out to the community, to my constituents who voted me in. My commitment is real. So that would be what I would share with them.
Carolyn?
Yeah, so I guess words of comfort and validation. There's nothing wrong with you. This is not your fault. It's all of our job to dig out, but if you're struggling mentally, emotionally, financially, we're living under an intentionally oppressive system. And so whatever you're going through is totally valid, and you should be gentle with yourself as much as you possibly can. And the word of encouragement would be is that I really truly believe, and I am a realist. I do not ever let myself believe things to make myself feel better to a fault. Really annoys my friends. So I truly believe, without being an optimistic person, that we are healing, that we are growing, that the world is going to a better place. I actually truly believe that we are headed to a better place, and that humanity is growing up, and that we as a human race are emotionally, spiritually, relationally maturing, and that we are going to grow out of war. We are going to grow out of people having, there's a pile of food over here and not enough food over here. I truly, truly believe that things are getting better, and that every generation is going to be closer and closer to that world that we can see with our hearts, right? Like that thing that we believe in, and we all know that it's there. And if we try to say what it is, it's like heart, like it's abundance, it's peace, it's prosperity, it's justice, that world that we can see, that we believe in, that makes people like Mercedes and I run for office like crazy people, 7 months straight, right? Of just hearts that causes us to do that we long for. I truly believe that we are going to see that world, and that world is coming, and that world that we're working for is being realized every single day. I'm not a super optimistic person, and I really actually think that things are getting better and that they will continue to get better. I know there's like this sort of doomsday thing where people are like, climate change and it's all going to hell. And I believe in climate change, that is happening. But I actually don't think that the world is going to burn away and that it's going to be this we're going to have this horrible end. I actually think that things are going to get better and we're going to figure it out. And I see that. And as we heal as individuals, as we heal as a community, it's going to happen. I really, truly believe that.
Wow. What an awesome episode, bringing these two on. Mercedes, do you have something to say?
No, I love the fact that you put us together. This is great. I don't know who else was I'm glad that this worked. She and I have the same energy and commitment to our community. And I'll tell you what, we would run paths, right, when we're going to the Board of Elections, either submitting our, several dozen new registration, we had the same level of energy and commitment to our community. Listen, they said I wouldn't win. They said she wouldn't win, and we both did it. Anyone that's running out there, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You get out there, you have conversations with the people who are going to be out at the poll. No one else matters except the folks that you're going to be serving. But listen, and we have to do this in a year and a half from now or 2 years from now. So the work never ends.
So big shout out.
It's just, it's less than a year away. Look at her face. Like no, 11 months. Yeah.
So I'm hoping that Isaiah is part of the campaign trail too. I'd love to see, you take a stab at
hey,
politics.
Oh yeah, for his own, yeah, for sure. I thought you were. We're gonna definitely have to split Isaiah's volunteer time next time.
Oh, I want him to run. It's time. He certainly has leadership skills. We've seen it, and his ability to, put word into action. He's done it. Now, let me tell you, we're so proud of you. So thank you. Continue doing what you're doing.
So as we come to an end, big shout out to these two people. I mean, their work ethic and everything for our community is what also keeps me pushing. I've been doing this for about 2 years now. So community work for about 2 years now. And in these 2 years, I've been able to do so much. And the only reason why I've been able to do it is through these people and these kind of people that support and push me, although that I'm 17 years old, because there are some people who try to disrespect me. And I show them I got more than what you got. But these people are the people that keeps me pushing. And as we go off, I have something to tell you too that is very, very good news, but that's when we'll go off. So from this episode of Youth in the Gap, I still don't know if this is a show, but if it is, this episode of Youth in the Gap, if you don't take anything out, take out that you have people in your community that cares. You have people in your community that's standing for you. You have people who's there to help you no matter what's going on. And don't ever be too afraid to keep it pushing. The adversity, and this is something that I came up with. I feel like, I could be like a speaker. But I came up with this quote that keeps me pushing. Adversity comes against the great people. It comes against great people. But the greatest and the most successful people are the ones who overcome it and keep on pushing. So no matter what's going on right now, no matter what's going on in your household, no matter what's going on in your community, know that you can keep on pushing. And because you keep on pushing, you are great.
I love that.
So keep on going, keep on pushing, keep being the best you. And this is the end of the episode of Youth in Gap with Mercedes Vazquez, Simmons, and Carolyn Hoffman. Thank you for joining, and make sure that you search Tassin Magazines on Facebook, on YouTube, and also on Google. That is the end.